Hello, welcome to the Daily News Ukraine channel. Today is January 25th and our daily review of news about Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in a phone call with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, received confirmation of Germany's decision to start supplying Ukraine with Leopard 2 tanks. According to Ukrinform, Deputy Head of the Office of the President of Ukraine Andriy Sybiha said this in a post on Facebook. A tank greeting, that's how I would describe the conversation between President Zelensky and Chancellor Scholz that has just taken place. On his birthday, the head of state received confirmation of the German side's decision to start supplying Ukraine with Leopard 2 tanks, as well as the granting of permission to third countries to supply us with tanks of this type. The training of the crews begins immediately, Sybiha said. Read also, Germany endorses decision to send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, approves re-exports. He added that there cannot be a better greeting for the president of a country that is courageously fighting not only for its independence, but also for the entire free world. It seems to me that it is natural for President Zelensky to receive exactly such wishes, and it is a good example for other leaders in today's congratulations, Sybiha said. Photo, Office of the President of Ukraine. On January 24, 2023, Russian troops opened fire on the Zaporizhzhia region 84 times. 17 settlements were struck with enemy projectiles. The relevant statement was made by the National Police of Ukraine, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. Yesterday, Russian troops shelled settlements in the Palahi and Vasilivka directions. Over 20 residential houses were damaged, the report states. In particular, Russian invaders attacked such settlements as Tavriisk, Leopard, Orikhiv, Zelensky, Malinivka, Chervon, Chernihiv, Novoandrivka, Novodanilivka, Molotokmachka, Olhivsk, Sherbaki, Pavlivka, Poltavka, Preobrazhenka, Stepov and Kamyansk. According to the police, the housing infrastructure of Leopard and neighboring villages suffers from enemy shelling every day. On January 24, 2023, the enemy struck the Leopard community settlements with multiple launch rocket systems and artillery. Several houses were destroyed, and others were seriously damaged. A man, 52, received shrapnel injuries in Russia's shelling of the village of Tavriisk. Photo, National Police of Ukraine. The federal government of Germany has endorsed a decision to provide 14 Leopard 2 main battle tanks to the armed forces of Ukraine. The relevant statement was made by spokesperson for the federal government of Germany Stefan Hebestreit, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. According to the press release, during a meeting of the federal government of Germany on Wednesday, Chancellor Olaf Scholz announced that Germany will continue to increase military support for Ukraine. This decision follows our well-known line of supporting Ukraine to the best of our ability. We are acting in a closely coordinated manner internationally, Scholz said. This decision is the result of intensive consultations that took place with Germany's closest European and international partners. The goal is to quickly assemble 2 tank battalions with Leopard 2 tanks for Ukraine. At the first stage, Germany will provide 14 Leopard 2A6 tanks from the Bundeswehr stocks. Other European partners will also hand over Leopard 2 tanks. The training of the Ukrainian crews is expected to quickly start in Germany. In addition to training, the package will also include logistics, ammunition, and maintenance. Moreover, Germany will issue the appropriate transfer permits to partner countries that want to quickly deliver Leopard 2 tanks from their stocks to Ukraine. Ukrainian forces have withdrawn from the Donetsk region's Soledar in order to save personnel. The relevant statement was made by spokesperson for the eastern grouping of the Armed Forces of Ukraine Chernihiv, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. According to Chernihiv, after months of high-intensity battles, the Ukrainian military stepped back to the prepared positions on the outskirts of Soledar. In order to save the lives of the personnel, the defense forces stepped back from Soledar and gained a foothold within the previously prepared defense frontiers. The defenders of Soledar performed a real feat despite the enemy's advantage. By 3 to 5 times, they were firmly holding their positions. They inflicted huge personnel losses on the enemy, which can be compared with the losses of the aggressor in the two Chechen wars, Chernihiv told. A reminder that, according to military expert Petro Chernik, Russia's Wagner Group lost about 40,000 soldiers during the battles for Bakhmut and Soledar, which is about two-thirds of its total numbers. About 6,000 Russian troops are now remaining within the territory of Belarus. The relevant statement was made by Vadim Skibitsky, the representative of the main intelligence directorate at the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. Today, within the territory of Belarus, the ground component consists of 5,800 servicemen. The 2nd Mechanized Brigade has redeployed to the territory of Russia and already entered the territory of Ukraine, i.e., the Luhansk region. Now, the units of the 6th Division, the units of territorial forces, are coming there for training purposes. These are completely different forces than that at the beginning of aggression. There is no powerful air component, despite training, there is no powerful missile component, there are no airborne troops, Skibitsky noted. In his words, currently, within the territory of Belarus, there are 1 Iskander battalion, S-300 and S-400 air defense missile systems, and 3 MiG-31 aircraft. On January 24, 2023, Russian troops opened fire on 11 settlements in the Donetsk region. Casualties among civilians were reported. The relevant statement was made by the main department of the National Police of Ukraine in the Donetsk region, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. The enemy struck such settlements as Avdiivka, Koshtantinivka, Toretsk, Kurakov, Chasev Yar, Krasnohorivka, Velika Novosilka, Vasil, Katarinivka, Vermivka, Krasnohorivka, the report states. Russian invaders used the S-300 missile systems, Tornado-S and Grad multiple launch rocket systems, MLRS, artillery, and tanks. 25 civilian objects were damaged, 14 residential houses, factory premises, gas pipeline, and cars. In particular, Russians fired 1 Tornado-S projectile and 2 S-300 missiles at Koshtantinivka, having hit a residential area and industrial facility. 7 apartment blocks were damaged. Civilians were reported injured, including 3 children. The enemy launched airstrikes on Avdiivka. Russian occupiers also struck the city with the Grad MLRS and artillery. 1 civilian was injured. Additionally, some civilians were injured in Velika Novosilka, Krasnohorivka, and Toretsk. The police helped 137 more people to evacuate. Generally, since the mandatory evacuation has started, over 36,680 civilians have been evacuated, including 5,335 children and 2,039 people with disabilities. Photo, National Police of Ukraine. More than 700 residents of temporarily occupied Melitopol, Zaporizhzhia region, are held captive. Dozens of them have been in captivity for almost a year. For the 11 months of occupation, the Russists have captured thousands of civilians. More than 700 people ended up in a basement in Melitopol. Dozens of them have been held captive for 10 to 11 months already, and nothing is known about their fate, Melitopol Mayor Ivan Fedorov posted on Telegram. Fedorov noted that Russia plans to set up 28 prisons in the occupied territories of Ukraine, 13, in Donetsk region, 8, in Luhansk region, 4, in Kherson region, and 3, in Zaporizhzhia region. Of them, 2 correctional facilities and a penal colony are to be opened. Dnipro Mayor Yevhen Matveyev and Enerhodar First Deputy Mayor Ivan Samoydyak have been in captivity for a long time. As reported, more than a month ago, the invaders closed the exit from the occupied territories to government-controlled Ukraine and forced residents to get special passes to move between the occupied settlements. OL. On the evening of January 24, a blast rocked the barracks where more than 200 Russian soldiers were stationed in Mariupol, temporarily captured by the Russian invaders. There is information about an explosion in the barracks in Mariupol where more than 200 Russian soldiers were stationed. The enemy's army suffered losses. The details are being clarified, the Mariupol City Council posted on Telegram. Read also, Russian forces wound 10 civilians in Donetsk region as reported. The invaders turned Mariupol and the nearest villages into a military logistics hub. Many armed Russian soldiers were accommodated and a variety of enemy military equipment was accumulated there. OL. Yesterday, the enemy troops shelled 11 border communities of Sumy and Chernihiv regions from the territory of the Russian Federation. The enemy fired mortars, MLRS, self-propelled artillery, and tube artillery. Krasnopilia, Myropilia, Bilopilia, Esmen, Snobnovorodsk, Novosloboda, Shalihine, and Putival communities of Sumy region, Semenivka, Snovsk, and Novorodsibirski communities of Chernihiv region came under fire, the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine reports. Nobody was injured. Read also, Russians hit Kherson region 52 times in past day. Casualties reported as reported, Ukraine's Air Force launched 8 strikes on enemy clusters, as well as 3 strikes on the positions of the enemy's anti-aircraft missile systems over the past day. OL. Over the past day, Russian invaders shelled the territory of Kherson region 52 times. 1 person was killed, 6 more were injured. Russian invaders shelled the territory of Kherson region 52 times. The enemy attacked the peaceful settlements of the region with artillery, MLRS, mortars, tanks, aircraft. Missile strikes were launched on the region, the Kherson Regional Military Administration informs. Kherson city was struck 12 times. Enemy shells slammed into a maternity hospital, a school, a polyclinic, a seaport, and residential buildings. Read also, Russian forces wound 10 civilians in Donetsk region. 1 civilian was killed and 6 more were injured in Russian shelling over the past day. OL. Today we were talking about those news. Zelensky, Sholtz discussed transfer of Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. Russians attacked Zaporizhzhia region 84 times over past day, houses damaged. Germany endorses decision to send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, approves re-exports. Ukrainian forces withdraw from Soledar to save personnel, AFU. About 6,000 Russian troops remaining in Belarus, intelligence. 11 settlements under enemy fire in Donetsk region, Russians use tanks, Grad MLRS, missiles. More than 700 Melitopol residents held captive by invaders. Blast rocks barracks housing more than 200 Russian soldiers in Mariupol. 11 border communities of Sumy, Chernihiv region struck yesterday. Russians hit Kherson region 52 times in past day. Casualties reported.